I'm the Parks and Trails Design Development Manager for the City of Missoula Parks and Recreation, and I claim to have the longest title in the city, so that's great. And I want to talk to you about the Missoula Bicycle Commuter Network, and we'll get into what that is, what that means, and where we're at, and where we want to go from here. Just a little background on me. I've got a bachelor's degree in horticulture from Utah State, master's degree in landscape architecture from Washington State. I've worked through my degrees and in between my degrees in landscape construction, maintenance design, and that kind of is kind of my background. This kind of goes through a bunch of the stuff I do as the Parks and Trails Design Development Manager, mostly just managing projects as developing parks, developing trails. I also comment on subdivisions. When they come through, I review them. Working on acquiring right-of-ways for more trails and whatnot. A lot of other stuff there. ADA accessibility is making sure that it gets implemented is a big part of my job. As well as this CPTED, which is an acronym for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. I try to make sure that those kind of principles are implemented in all of our civic projects. So why do we want trails? There's some fun statistics and things for why they're necessary. They make non-motorized transportation easy and convenient. It's a lot nicer to bike or walk or rollerblade or whatever on a trail than it is in a street. It's even better on a trail than versus a sidewalk because of width and those kind of issues. Trails facilitate a healthier lifestyle for our citizens, and we all know that we've got this epidemic of obesity in our country. Trails are a way to get people out of their cars, on their feet, on their bikes, rollerblades, whatever, and using their bodies to transport themselves rather than some sort of machinery. We can also get people out of their vehicles, off the roads, and on the trails. We can actually reduce the amount of traffic that we have on the roads by having a really interconnected trail system. Of course, we can reduce air pollution. We can also help make America more oil independent. Maybe this gets to kind of what you're talking about last night. Non-motorized transportation doesn't require any foreign oil, so that's helpful. Some interesting statistics that I've acquired from adventure cycling. About 50% of trips in metropolitan areas are 3 miles or less. 3 miles is a relatively short distance and is a distance that's easy to do on a bicycle or by rollerblades or some other non-motorized means. Those are the types of trips that you don't have to use a vehicle to do. 28% of all trips in metropolitan areas are 1 mile or less, even easier. So if we're able to get all the people who are making these 1 mile trips into some sort of non-motorized transportation on trails or whatever, that's going to help us out tremendously. Some statistics from Missoula, we've got about 5.6% of people going to work by bike, 7.1% by walking. And of course the rest are probably some other vehicular means, whether it's mass transit or single occupancy vehicles or whatever. We want to get those statistics up and get more people walking, more people biking. So we want to get these trails put together really well. So here's our overarching goals that we've set in the city. We want to create a safe, seamless, non-motorized network that connects people to all these different things. We've got parks, schools, retail centers, places of work, necessity services, grocery stores, whatever. We want people to be able to get from point A to point B easily on a non-motorized system, and the trails are a major component of our city system. The BCN stands for Bicycle Commuter Network, so I'll be referring to the Bicycle Commuter Network as the BCN throughout the rest of the presentation.
And Dave, does the BCN refer to the on-street bike lane system too?
The BCN does refer to the on-street system. So we're talking, when I say BCN, we're talking everything. The trails, this slide gets into types of non-motorized facilities. We got multi-use trails or bike paths. So we have this section broken up into a couple different tiers that help us know where to build what trails and how to build them. First tier is our commuter networks. So these are larger trails like the Kim Williams Trail on the riverfront system, the Milwaukee Trail, the Bitterroot Branch Trail. They're usually paved, usually, not all of them are at this point, 10 to 12 feet wide to be able to accommodate the volume of traffic. Next here are neighborhood connections. These trails are paved or gravel. They're typically a little more narrow, 6 feet to 8 feet wide. They can be as big as 10 feet depending on traffic flows again. Preferably they're 8 feet, they have an 8-foot paved surface. Then our last here are the primitive walkways or trails, and that's like the M trail that you're seeing in this picture here. These are gravel or earth surface trails, 2 to 5 feet wide. And to continue on, we have on-street facilities, which is actually outside of my jurisdiction. I don't deal with on-street facilities or sidewalks, but they can be bike lanes, which is a painted line in the street. This is a picture from Broadway. That's the bike lanes out there. You've got a bicycle route, which has no painted line, but you see this triangular symbol here denotes a bike route, which sort of alerts vehicle drivers that there could very possibly be bicycles in the lane. And of course, there's always roads where you share the lane entirely. And of course, sidewalks. They're also a really important part of the non-motorized network. They don't facilitate as many different modes of non-motorized transportation as other facilities, but they're really important. Here's another major component, our separate grade crossings. They're absolutely essential, especially in Missoula where we have major roads, rivers, irrigation ditches, all kinds of things. This is the California Street Bridge right here. Bridges are really, really important, also very expensive. Currently, these are the ones we have. California Street, Madison Street Underbridge, which is a fantastic facility. The Rattlesnake Bridge, which is up near the end of Duncan Drive and connects a couple of our primitive trails up there in that part of the city. We have the Van Buren Bike Ped Bridge and the Northside Bridge, which crosses the railroad tracks.
They're also extremely fun to traverse.
They are. They're really great.
Entertaining for bike riders.
They become icons. They become place indicators. So people know where these structures are. They really stand out in the community. We also have our underpasses, and these are the two that we currently have in the city. We have one at Orange Street. This is right by just south of McCormick Park, and it lies along the old Milwaukee line that runs through town, connects to the Kim Williams. And then the underpass at Reserve Street, which I don't think as many people know about because we don't have trails connecting up to it for any length, for any real long distance. We just have a short piece from Davis to Reserve, and then another short piece on the west side of Reserve up to Grove Street, and that's it. I'm currently working on trying to make, to connect that up to the rest of the trail system. But at least it's there. That's one hurdle that's taken care of. Getting under Reserve is a huge hurdle. So here's an overview of the system. So these are all the different types of facilities that we include. Currently, we've got 23 miles of city-operated urban trails. So these are going to be our paved trails and our commuter trails, that type of thing. 40-plus miles of city-operated primitive trails. So that's going to include all the things on the North Hills, Jumbo. I believe it includes the trails on Sentinel, which aren't technically the cities, they're the universities. And then if you include all of the surrounding recreation areas, the Rattlesnake Recreation Area, Blue Mountain, those types of Forest Service trails, we have around 135-ish miles of trails within the city and surrounding areas. So pretty impressive trail system for recreation and for also transportation. The system overall is pretty good, and I say they're very good. We received a silver standing by the American League of Bicyclists a couple years ago. We've since let that designation drop because of being able to register to be able to maintain it. Our system has actually improved since we've achieved that, but we want to continue to make it better. We have pretty good connectivity throughout the system, and this map here, if it'll load for me, there we go, gets at the complete non-motorized system. So what we're seeing here in red we're seeing the core of the bicycle commuter network. These are the main commuter connections that we have around town. You see Bitterroot branch line going north-south-ish right there. Of course, the riverfront system on both the north and south shores of the river. Over here you can see the little piece that connects underneath Reserve Street. The blue lines are all of the bike lanes that are on the roads throughout town. And the dashed purple lines are the bike routes that are around town. We don't have sidewalks showing up on here. And then of course, all these little brown lines that are scattered out throughout are the primitive trails that we have around the city. So not too bad, but I'll get into some of the difficulties that our system is seeing right now in a little bit. So some of the major weaknesses that we're seeing in our trail system right now is that we have some pretty big connectivity gaps. And if you're from the area, you know where they're at. They're the Bitterroot Branch Trail. Milwaukee Trail stops at Russell Street, doesn't continue west out to that underpass at Reserve. The North Shore Riverfront Trail gets spotty in areas. There's big chunks of the North Shore Riverfront that we don't have trail on. And of course, the Milwaukee, heading west of Reserve Street, there's huge potential out there. Not all of our trails are connecting up to make this seamless system just yet. And a lot of areas don't even have sidewalks in town, which makes our trails all that much more important to be able to take the place of sidewalks if necessary. Bike lanes, bike routes often are not continuous. They'll stop at the end of a road or wherever, mid-section on a road in some places, which causes us problems. There's areas in town where there aren't any trails at all. All these things combined, I feel, leads to fewer users than what we could have in Missoula. Having a disjointed system makes it more intimidating for less experienced potential users. I've heard a number of people say, I would ride my bike on the trails if, or I would, ride the bike lanes if. And I think that those ifs are these gaps that we have in the system. So this is just a quick map that sort of shows where some of these gaps are. There's the Bitterroot, the break in the Bitterroot branch line. We've got this gap here along the Milwaukee between Russell and Reserve Street. The North Shore Riverfront could be better connected. And of course, west of town, west of Reserve, the old Milwaukee corridor passes right through the heart of that, of one of our major expansion areas where Missoula is going to grow to out to the west. And presents a great opportunity for trail development that could lead right back into the heart of town. So, where do we go next and how do we get there? I'm going to kind of buzz through these kind of fast because I got a number of things that I'd like to talk to you about. A lot of these trail projects are citizen-driven, and in fact, the citizen-driven projects are the most important ones. They're the ones that seem to take off the very best. We also have needs-driven projects where the city determines where something needs to go or a trail needs to happen. Development-driven very much is interplayed with the needs-driven projects and opportunity-driven projects. And to go through a couple examples of each of these, the city really does listen to what the citizens have to say. Citizen groups have been responsible for a lot of trail development around town, and they help tremendously with these, with the legwork of getting these things going, the planning, the fundraising, hiring out design work possibly. It hasn't happened yet, but we're working on it. These are things that citizens can do to help these trail projects happen faster. Because if any of you are familiar with city or government processes, they take forever. And if there are any of these legwork kind of things that citizens can do, it speeds up the process and we can help these trails get on the ground sooner. It can help with land acquisition and getting donations. We have to take citizen-submitted projects through city approval processes. They have to get into the urban transportation plan. They have to get into the capital improvement plan so that we can spend city money on them, that kind of thing. We did a trail in 2006 that we called the South Hills Trail. That was a citizen-generated project. Ended up costing about $130,000 for 3,500 feet of trail. And the neighborhood was instrumental in getting that done. Right now, the folks of Grant Creek are working on 3 miles of trail to parallel that road, which would be a fantastic project, and they've taken that project a long ways already, and continue to work on that. It's estimated to be about $1.3 million. So a big project, and they're working hard on it. Here's the South Hills Trail. On this site is Reserve Street, just south of Meadow Hills School, and it passes through a series of parks and city right-of-ways over to Wapakia Park, and was a fantastic project, and the neighborhoods loved it. Here's a concept plan for the Grant Creek Trail, and that project that they're working on out there. It's a substantial trail. They're planning on going from north of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation all the way up to Snowball Road. Our needs-driven trails are things like the gap in the Bitterroot branch line or the Milwaukee line, where there's major connectivity gaps. There's a trail east of town in Canyon River that we need to connect to. So there's sort of these obvious ones where the city goes, yes, we definitely need to have a connection from here to here because we have existing trails or whatever. And so that's what we would deem a needs-driven or city-determined trail that aren't necessarily brought to us by the citizens. This is an example. Here's the Milwaukee line that you're seeing in red. The I-90 is in black, kind of more or less paralleling the old Milwaukee line. The Milwaukee Railroad used to run from Chicago to Tacoma, Washington. And the old line, the old railroad grade is still intact for the most part across the entire state of Montana. We've got the King Williams lies on the old Milwaukee grade, and we also have a trail that we've called the Milwaukee Trail that lies on the old grade. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to be able to convert this old rail bed into a trail that could traverse across the entire state of Montana. There's groups out there that are working on that right now, and I can give you information on getting in contact with them. Here, what you're seeing in red are our existing trails. This is the one that's going around the Canyon River Golf Course, and here's the end of the Kim Williams Trail. And so we've said, we need to connect the Kim Williams to the Canyon River Trail so that we have a continuous trail all the way around. And I'm working with the developers of these two proposed subdivisions here to be able to make trail connections in there so that someday there could be a loop in this area. And of course, the old Milwaukee line used to travel right through here, and it takes a bend to the south, southwest, and then continues on down there. Once you get into the county, that's a little bit out of my jurisdiction, so I don't particularly work directly with those kind of trail projects that are outside city limits, but I definitely encourage them and do as much as I can to help. So these are just other examples. I'm going to skip this slide because I've got other things I want to show you. This is a plan for, this is just west of the ball field. This is going to be called the Silver Park. It's going to be developed in part with the old Champion Mill site redevelopment. And they're going to build trails in this park that are going to connect our riverfront system from McCormick Park over to the California Street Bridge, which is going to be a really important connection. Here's some of our trail development constraints and opportunities. Obviously, we got to have land to build the trails on, and land in Missoula and anywhere around the rest of the country is getting extremely expensive. Easements are extremely expensive to get from private landowners, so it's really difficult just to have the space to be able to build these things in. The opportunities that we have is that there's federal funding available to help us out in purchasing land and also building the trails. So that helps offset, but it takes a lot to get them done. We can have trail and park dedication, land dedicated when development occurs. So when a subdivision comes in, we can have their park dedication go toward a trail. That's really helpful, and also private donations when someone's feeling charitable enough to give us land, we're always willing to accept. So that helps out a lot. Here's some physical barriers that we have around town. We have constraints like major roads that we have to go across either at grade or over or under to be able to get people around safely. We've got the Clark Fork River that we have to get across. And I think, personally, I feel like Missoula's done a real good job in getting pedestrian and non-motorized facilities across the river. Then we have irrigation ditches that crisscross the whole city. And just to give you an idea, last year I put a bridge across this irrigation ditch that we're looking at right here, and it cost $30,000 to put in a 30-foot bridge. So it's incredibly expensive. So we have, though, quite a few separate grade crossings around town. Our bridges, again, this is the north side bridge that you're seeing here. Our bridges, our underpasses are incredible and very, very helpful. And then crossings at grade. There's a few of these around town. Mostly you're kind of up to your own, to kind of get through intersections with the rest of the traffic for the most part around town. Human resources, I'm going to go through this one quick. Basically, there's only one of me in the city that's working on these trail projects. I need help from citizens to be able to meet the demand that's out there. Citizens want the trails and the non-motorized system to be really well connected, but there's only so much I can do, and so I like to call on citizens to help out as much as possible. The opportunities we do have, a lot of cities don't have a person in this position that's working solely on developing trails and parks around the city, and it leaves a lot up to the citizens to get stuff done. The second to last bullet here are a number of different organizations, and it's not all of them, that are local to the city that do help work on these projects. FMP is Friends of Missoula Parks. That's a nonprofit that works with the Parks Department a lot. They put the bridge in at the end of the Rattlesnake Bridge. It's at the end of Duncan Drive. That was their work. MRA is the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. They did the California Street Bridge, the Madison Street Underbridge. They've done numerous trails around the city and are fantastic. New group in town, BWAM, the Bike Walk Alliance for Missoula. I don't know what their exact mission is, but it's definitely geared toward non-motorized transportation around town. And the last one is MRTG, or the Milwaukee Road Trail Group, a small group that's working specifically on the old Milwaukee Road and joining that up. Some of our typical funding sources for trails. This is a big one. This is CTEP, or the Community Transportation Enhancement Program. This is part of the great big transportation pot, the federal transportation pot that's out there. And it's a match program where the city fronts, or the city, it's a match reimbursement program where the city pays for a project and then CTEP reimburses that project 86.58%, which is a great return. So we end up only really expending 13.42% of the total project cost from the city funding. So it's a great way to make our city dollars stretch. The Recreational Trails Program is run by Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. It's also a reimbursement grant. It's a reimbursement type program where they give us back 80% of the costs. And then we can use city general funds, of course, toward the trails. We can take private donations that lead, and the thing that's great about that is when we get private donations, often they can count toward the local match that's required for these other big federal grants. Neighborhood involvement, again, is key. And then when development comes in, whenever there's a subdivision, we have laws in Missoula, and this is fairly common around the country, that the subdivision has to dedicate 11% of its land mass toward parks. And that can count for trails, it can count for parks, or some combination of the two. And we have a lot of say as to which pieces of the property get dedicated as park or trail to count toward the 11%. And of course, other grants. And if you know of any others that I don't have up there, let me know.
So can you back up 1 second?
Yeah. Back up one slide.
Yeah. What percentage of the total MDT is the amount that is dedicated to CTEP or to,
So how that works is you have a CTEP project, and just to make the numbers easy, let's say you have a $100,000 project.
okay, CTEP's the wrong thing. What
Oh.
percentage of the total MDT is dedicated to alternative transportation overall? I mean,
Oh, like MDT, like MDT of course stands for Montana Department of Transportation.
okay, the total transportation budget, you know, I don't know how.
Oh, I know. I think I know what you're saying. You're saying that the federal transportation pot, a percentage of that big pot is dedicated to non-motorized transportation.
Yeah,
Is that
but
what you're getting at?
specifically to here in the money we're spending in Missoula, in
Mhm.
Missoula County.
If I understand your question right, I think that the answer is that the CTAP is that percentage. So the city gets oh gosh, I forget the number exactly, but we get a certain amount of money from the Federal Transportation Fund every year for non-motorized projects. So that goes for sidewalks, trails, whatever else. And then the agencies that want to use that funding have to apply for it. And so the CTEP program is how that percentage is disseminated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the question I'm trying to ask, I guess, is you have,
What is the percentage?
no, you have all this money out of that total budget that's put to building roads for cars. What percentage, you know, of that budget?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's an interesting, in
I'd have to-
other words, in the full transportation picture from the
right.
federal government,
Right,
what percent actually is non-motorized?
right, because there were a couple of misleading slides that just talked about like percents, but they didn't relate to that.
No, I didn't speak to that bigger pot.
It's probably like less than 5%.
No,
right? Wouldn't
it
you
probably
think?
even less than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure though, really. I don't know.
A lot of times it's flexible money, and the law is written so it can be used for a variety of things, but states tend to steer it into motor vehicle projects.
Now, in the last big transportation bill at the federal level, it's called ICE-T, right?
The newest one is T21.
Oh, okay, T21.
Actually, the newest
The
one is
newest one
safety.
is safety.
Safety Lou, there's been 3.
Okay, now that had a very strong commitment to non-motorized transit, right? And are you seeing that? I mean, you feel like, yeah, the money's there, but there's, as long as you go through the hoops to get it. Is that your feeling, or?
You know, for the demand that Missoula, for what Missoula needs, there isn't enough to get done what Missoula needs. It would be it would be great if there were more.
Okay.
Because there's plenty of demand for citizens around town for trails and non-motorized transportation facilities, and there isn't enough funding to do. I mean, these projects are outrageously expensive, and our money goes away like that. If I remember right, we get like $250,000 per year for our CTEP projects for the entire city. So that's sidewalks, trails, combined, and that goes away real fast. Anyhow, just to kind of sum things up, here's some of the local citizen groups again, just 3 of them, and people to contact. You can come back and, I can share this information with you. And again, that's me, that's my contact information. I have cards available, I'm sure everyone if you each want one. And I appreciate you guys coming.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Yay.
Hello everyone, my name is Chase Jones. I'm the program specialist for Missoula in Motion here in Missoula, Montana. First, and I apologize, I'm a little bit of a marketing dork, so just by a show of hands, who has heard of Missoula in Motion or the Way to Go Club? Great. And I'm always a big fan of feedback too, so if you can shout it out, you can do whatever, but what is your impression of why we're here and what we do?
We're in a transportation pickle.
In a transportation pickle. What do you mean by that, Bob?
Pollution, perceived congestion, crashes,
Global warming.
frustration, global warming. There's a lot of issues that transportation seems wrapped up in.
Okay. Any other perceptions out there of Missoula in Motion or the Way to Go Club? Okay.
I don't know if it's Missoula in motion, but I think it's the wider transportation picture and how planning is happening and how it's focused on the car and especially single occupancy cars and vehicles, and population, and the expansion of the urban growth boundary in Missoula, and all of those issues.
Sure. Yeah, our fingers, I guess, sort of reach deeply into lots of different things going on in Missoula. So thank you all for your feedback. And again, that's just a little bit of kind of non-scientific research on my part to kind of view how the public perceives Missoula in Motion and if we're doing things right. So I'll fill you in a little bit more. Missoula in Motion is a program to help local businesses, institutions, and individuals address transportation issues here in Missoula. It's a way of reducing traffic, alleviating parking problems, and improving air quality, the health of individuals, and the general community of Missoula, period. So, and on top of all that, we also are just trying to save folks a little money and free up some time and maybe reduce a little stress in their lives. So, like I said, we're a multifaceted, really kind of wide view organization.
What you need?
We were created in 1997, and we've been developing and promoting transportation demand management programs to sort of address those issues and get those results. TDM, or Transportation Demand Management, it's a little different view. It focuses on the demand of movement for people and goods rather than just cars. And so, for the record, TDM and Missoula in Motion is not anti-car, but rather we view the transportation system as a multimodal system where biking has a place, walking has a place, buses have a place, as well as cars. And our goal is to educate folks on all those different options and plug them into what works for them and is what is most efficient for Missoula and that transportation system. So that's a little overview of the TDM philosophy and what we strive to do. Before I go into our specific programs, it's always good for me to know, and I like to tell people, go over a little bit of why we do this and why it's important to Missoula, just to kind of set the stage a little bit. So sort of the issues that we're trying to address and problems that we're hoping to help solve. So number one is traffic congestion. As we heard in the audience, traffic is an issue in Missoula. And that's all relative. I know someone from Manhattan would come to Missoula and say, traffic, no way. But we're in the big sky country. We like to think we move out here to live in the rural West and live this sort of romantic Western lifestyle. So from that point of view, we've got some traffic issues. It's no question Missoula is growing at a pace that is adding to that traffic problem. Traffic, no one likes to sit in traffic. It's stressful, stress is unhealthy, and again, it also kind of diminishes that character of Missoula, of this quaint sort of Western town where we're all active and we're all outside moving around. So traffic congestion definitely diminishes that character of Missoula that I think we're all proud of, and it's a reason why we live here. Also, that congestion and traffic pressure, it's tough on the infrastructure of our transportation system, and that results in spending a lot of money on that infrastructure system to keep up. And so that's another reason why we're doing this, is to try to alleviate that pressure so that maybe some money could be freed up to put elsewhere. And that's up for the public to decide. So that's number one, is traffic congestion. Number 2 is transportation is expensive. Gas is approaching or even more than $3 a gallon. We all know that the wages in Missoula aren't the highest in the nation. The cost of living is expensive, and so it's a way that we can ease financial pressure on folks that live in Missoula, and especially the low-income folks. There are jobs that may not be as accessible because it's too expensive to drive there in a single occupant vehicle, and so we really try to highlight, again, the whole transportation system and options that aren't an expensive single occupant vehicle, and it might help someone access a job that they thought was impossible beforehand. So that's another important reason. So transportation is expensive, especially single occupant vehicle transportation. A third reason is health. We all want to be healthy. Again, that's another huge reason that we live in Missoula. We want to be active, we like to exercise, we think of kind of getting out of the city and living in the West as this really healthy lifestyle. And I think we all, kind of as a community, are committed to that. So it's no doubt moving and exercise are good for you. But overall, it's easy to be stagnant. It's easy to jump in your motorized car and not have to kind of work to get where you're going. And overall, I think the United States has become somewhat of a stagnant society, and think that the only convenience is, again, jumping in a single occupant vehicle. And so by incorporating physical activity into the commute, we can help to reduce health issues like obesity, and kind of all of the domino effect that goes with that, and kind of a stagnant lifestyle. So number 3 is health. Sustainable transportation and is a healthier way to go. So, and forgive me for the pun there, way to go. So, and then finally, air quality. Air quality is a huge issue in Missoula. Again, I don't think it's a secret that Missoula struggles with air quality. It is not only because of transportation, it's also because of the geography of the valley that we sit in, and also that kind of rapid growth that Missoula is experiencing. But we do know that transportation is a large part of that. In fact, there's a statistic out there that 65% of Missoula's winter and spring air pollution can be related to motor vehicle use. And that goes with road dust, kind of the degradation of tires as you use them, as well as emissions. And so it's a fact that transportation can contribute to pollution. And again, Missoula in Motion and the Way to Go Club hopefully will educate folks on what they can do to reduce their vehicle miles traveled, and then which then can lead to better air quality. It's as simple as that. So that's just a quick review of the reasons why we do it. Again, maybe that's my linear scientific mind, but I always kind of like to know what the issues are and why we're spending so much time doing this and why we're so passionate about what we do. So traffic congestion, single occupant vehicle use is expensive, a healthy community, and air quality. Those are 4 of the major reasons. And there are many more, but those are kind of ones that I want to highlight in this brief talk. So what are we doing about it? And specifically, what is Missoula in Motion doing to address these issues? And so I'll go into those a little bit. First, we created something called the Way to Go Club, which I think most in this room at least are familiar with. And if you're watching at home, waytogoclub.com. If you don't know about it, read up on it, and I encourage you to join. We created the Way to Go Club, which is a commuter club, and we're approaching 4,500 members in Missoula, which I'm very proud of, and have saved over 5 million pounds of CO2 from the atmosphere, which I'm also proud of. Again, it's a commuter club set up to educate folks on the issues and their options. It's also set up to engage them, hopefully on a day-to-day basis, but at least on a regular basis, into this whole TDM, sustainable transportation kind of movement and community. And then it's also a way to reward folks for their effort. So those are kind of the main components of the Way to Go Club. Again, it's approaching 4,500 members, and I feel like it's a great asset to Missoula and its citizens. So that's one thing we're doing to help address the issues I stated earlier. Another is something called the Momentum Program, whereas the Way to Go Club is our aim at individuals, the Momentum Program is our aim at the workplace. That's our employer outreach arm of Missoula in Motion. And what we offer workplaces are assessments of their employees and their transportation habits, and then we come back with individualized transportation programs. Again, we're trying to highlight things that they can do differently. And I want to say over and over that it's not all or nothing. We encourage at least one day a week, and then we kind of also know that once folks give it a try and they start, it often leads to more than one day a week. So that program, again, is aimed at kind of changing that workplace culture that your single occupant vehicle car is the only way to get to work. There are other options out there, and we want folks to know about them, and we want folks to know how to utilize those resources here in Missoula, those transportation resources. So that is the Momentum Program. We also do broad public education and advertising campaigns. I feel like most in the room at least have seen our commercials, which again highlight the transportation options in our Way to Go Club. I'm excited about a new campaign that's coming out. And then we also just try to be everywhere in the community. We set up at trade shows. We try to go to, here at the university, we set up at the many festivals that Missoula is lucky enough to have. And we try to just be a constant presence in Missoula. Again, at an aim of changing what people expect as far as transportation goes. And so that this isn't an alternative to them, that almost a single occupant vehicle is an alternative, and that the norm is riding your bike or taking public transportation or walking or carpooling or any of those options that we try to promote. So we work really hard to be a constant presence in the community at as many different events as possible to reach as many different people as possible. So we also have something called the Transportation Best Practices Program, and that is an awards program aimed at workplaces that have really kind of created innovative programs and have incorporated sustainable transportation into their workplace culture. They get a cash award to improve their transportation program, and then we use them as an example in a series of advertising campaigns and a whole kind of press blitz on their practices in hopes of inspiring other workplaces. So that's another thing that we do. So those are sort of the main components of how we are trying to educate, encourage the Missoula community, and again, reward them and keep them engaged in helping to resolve the issues I stated earlier and helping them to utilize non-single occupant vehicle transportation options. So next, I want to emphasize, because often I feel like a lot of these conversations focus on the negative, and I want to emphasize that we're lucky in Missoula and that we have more folks than the average town in the United States, and I should have a real specific kind of percentage in fact on that, but we've got a good thing going in Missoula as far as this goes. I think it's impossible to ignore lots of people biking, lots of people walking, the mountain line bus system all over town, and so I just want to emphasize that we have a good thing going. And I'm excited about that, and I think that just builds on itself. That's not to say we shouldn't do anything. Missoula in Motion is extremely passionate about what we do, and we want everyone to utilize these options. So, but I do want folks to feel good about what is going on, and not sort of think that, well, it's a lost cause, so we can't do anything about this. We really want folks to try it at least one day a week, and then again, I think it just kind of catches on almost like a wildfire. So I just wanted to take a little time to make that point. And so I wanted to do a brief overview on the great system that we do have as I mentioned, we have a pretty good system in place. Again, it can always be improved, and there are lots of folks in the Missoula community working to improve that. But just a brief overview of kind of the multimodal system that we have set up here. First, I'd like to address biking and walking, sort of non-motorized transportation. I mentioned the geography as far as how it contributes to air quality, but the geography of the Missoula Valley also contributes to biking and walking being really accessible. It's basically a flat valley. I recently learned at a bike walk conference, pretty much anywhere you would like to go in Missoula is 4 miles or under, which is a very bikeable distance for sure. I don't know if I would go as walkable for the majority of people, but certainly bikeable. And so the combination of those two things, and then a pretty good trail system, again, always needs to be improved, and we work very hard to make more and more and more connections to that trail system. But as far as a baseline, we've got the river trail, we have 2 brand new bike ped bridges, we have some other existing bike ped bridges in town, a nice system of bike lanes, and something to work with for sure. And I'm really proud of Missoula for where we are, and I'm excited to see where we can go to improve that system and improve connectivity, and again, just to make it even easier than it already is. So that's sort of biking and walking. The mountain line, public transportation. Again, we're not a giant town, and I feel pretty lucky that we have as extensive public transportation as we do. I'm sure everyone has seen the bus running around town. They do their best to set up a system to cover most parts of town. And again, as the momentum increases for folks that view public transportation as sort of their #1 option, it's kind of like as ridership goes up, then frequency will increase and there will be more routes added. And we're at a time right now where we're seeing that. A new route starts September 10th, and it's going to serve the North Preserve Expressway area as well as the airport. And that, I feel like, is a result of Missoula's commitment to using public transportation, and that ridership, the return on that is an additional route. And I think that's an encouraging sort of indicator, and I think it's only going to get better. Again, I want to focus on the positive, and we can always get more people on the bus, but I think we're headed in the right direction, and we are seeing tangible results. We have a new route starting in a matter of days, so I'm pretty excited about the bus system and mountain line here in Missoula. I'd also like to talk a little bit about carpooling and vanpooling. I know that not everyone can bike, not everyone can walk, not everyone's schedule fits with the mountain line schedule, and so there are other options. Carpooling is a wonderful option, as well as vanpooling. It just makes sense from a real practical saving money standpoint, as well as sort of this environmental ethics standpoint, to hop in together. Let's build community. Let's get to know our neighbors. Let's save some money on gas and parking as well. And so there are some great resources to get hooked in to carpooling and vanpooling. The Missoula Valley Transportation Management Association administers those programs. They're in the process, and we're helping to promote it, of launching a ride match online system, which I think could be great and will be great. It all depends on sort of the more people that register. Again, that will just build on itself, and there will be more and more matches. And that's Alternate Rides is the name of that website. And so I encourage you to check that website out and log on and see what's out there. And see, again, just one day a week, if you can save yourself a single occupant vehicle trip, then I encourage you to take advantage of that. And then as far as vanpooling goes, a lot of those are established routes, but I do know that if a minimum of 5 people can get together and be on the same schedule, that there is the possibility of creating a new vanpool. And so know that though that's not a stagnant program. I don't think it's an unlimited program either, but there is room to grow with that a little bit. And so be encouraged by that and start asking your coworkers or your neighbors what their schedules are and try to kind of team up. And a van pool is a great option as well, opposed to a single occupant vehicle. And then finally, this is kind of a newer theme, but as technology grows, it's an easier and easier way to go, and that is teleworking. And that's simply being able to log in remotely and do your work from home. The best trip is no trip at all. I mean, that it's just a fact. You're not consuming any resources. There are no emissions associated with that. You're not, congesting the traffic system. And so it takes a little bit of a mind shift, but I think that a lot of employers are getting there, and I think a lot of employees are seeing the benefits of doing as much work as they can from home. So start to think about that a little bit as well. And then finally, again, it's another little shift from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, but flexible scheduling is another great way to do it. And that just kind of allows for more sort of flexibility with carpooling and van pooling. It allows you some extra time if you do want to take that time and have a healthy walk on your way to work and on your way home. Same with biking. That also could allow you some time as well to, again, get to work, say, on your bike. And if you're sweaty and you need to be in a suit for work, or you can't look sweaty for work, then it might give you a time to take a shower and kind of get into your work clothes and your work mode. And I think that it, again, helps to reduce stress. It makes folks more productive at work, and I think it just helps everyone to be more healthy and happy. And so that's another interesting way to try to think about your work commute and your daily routine in general, really. So there are lots of options out there, and again, Missoula in Motion is your resource if you feel like you need help figuring out these ways. And again, we can do it on the individual level with the Way to Go Club, as well as kind of a workplace level with the Momentum program. And that's what we do, and we're available as much as we can keep up with the demand to help folks figure this out, and then again, keep them engaged and reward them for doing this. And so that's kind of a nutshell of what we do, the issues we're trying to address, our programs that are helping to address those issues, and then all of the different transportation options in Missoula for you to take advantage of. And so I always like to follow up with, what can you do? I feel like I've kind of mentioned it through the presentation, but if you're not a member of the Way to Go Club, join the Way to Go Club. We'll, again, keep you informed on everything that's going on. We will engage you in a community, and we will reward you for your effort. So I encourage you to join the Way to Go Club. Also, talk about it at the dinner table at home. Bring it up at work. Talk to your coworkers. And more importantly, talk to your employer. Talk to your boss and say, hey, I was in this presentation, or I saw this on MCAT, and Missoula in Motion is a resource to help us figure out how to get to work a little differently, and a little more healthy, and a little, all that goes with that. And so plant that seed in your boss's mind and have them call us or shoot us an email, and we'll call them, and we'll be there on site to help you figure out all of your, again, kind of an individualized transportation program. So those are two huge things you can do. And then simply give it a try. Think about what best works for you. Try it one day a week if you haven't done it at all. And I really feel that you will be encouraged at how easy it is, how good you feel, and sort of how good it feels to kind of give back and contribute to that greater Missoula community. And so those are kind of 3 quick and easy things you can do to join us in sort of the sustainable transportation movement or community. So I encourage you to do all that. Finally, I just kind of want to end with what we have cooking, some things that we have going for the future. I'm proud to announce a program where we are aiming at the student population here in Missoula. It's called Commotion, We have a brochure, and we actually have a website that we've kicked off, and that's mslacommotion.com. And again, that is a lot of the same, we're addressing the same issues, we're encouraging the same modes, and encouraging folks to do it for the same beneficial reasons I mentioned earlier. It's just a little different age group. And I think it's a really important age group to try to change some of their perceptions and attitudes before they think that just driving a car alone is the only way. And so it's aimed at kind of evening the playing field with the car. Again, we're not anti-car at all. It has its place in the transportation system and in the community. But again, we're just trying to kind of even that playing field so that biking, walking, public transportation, all of those other things are right on par with driving your car. So I'm excited about that Commotion program aimed at students in Missoula. Another is the Business by Bike program. And that's an effort where we hope to place a fleet of bikes in a downtown area just to pilot it, and then we hope that it catches on and spreads through town. And so a fleet of bikes in a secure, covered locker system right downtown. And the idea is that if that fleet is available and it's dry and it's well maintained, and we've done our job on educating the business community in Missoula, that they will think about, oh, hey, I can check out a bike and I can ride my bike to that meeting instead of driving in the car. Or, oh yeah, I'm not worried about taking the bus in today because I can check out that bike and do my errand at lunch that I need to do. And so, it's aimed at just making it a little bit easier to utilize the sustainable transportation options that we have here in Missoula. So keep an eye out for that. We hope that the locker system and the fleet is in a very visible place downtown, hopefully with some interpretive signs that explains the program, again, why we're doing it. And so we want it to be a public education piece as well as a really usable bike fleet. So keep an eye out for that as well. In downtown Missoula to start, to pilot, and then we'll see how it goes and learn some lessons from it, I'm sure, and then hopefully it catches on. So that's the Business by Bike program. I mentioned a new ad campaign earlier. We have that in the works, and I'm pretty excited to unveil that, however it may look. So we're working on that. And then also, I'm very excited. Missoula in Motion, as far as staff goes, has been in transition for a long time. And recently, we gained 2 new folks in our office. And I'm fairly new myself. I haven't even been here a full year. But we have a new student program coordinator, Roxy Todd, and she'll be kind of leading the charge on that Commotion program. And then I'm very excited to welcome Alex Stockman as the new program coordinator. She's in the audience today. She and her husband and 16-month-old son, Otto, have moved out here from St. Paul, Minnesota. She brings a wealth of experience, and I'm starting to feel like we're going to get back in full swing here, and I feel like the new team, Missoula in Motion, is going to be kind of a force to be reckoned with, and we're going to be out there in the community. So that's kind of the final thing that we have in the works that I'm very excited about.
Now, what's in your hand?
Next one.
There it is. Okay, let me just, okay, well, morning everyone. My name is Mark Leparco. I'm the Director of Dining Services at the University of Montana, and I would like to share with you some information about the Pharma College program, and will tie to the best that I can some information about the transportation implications as it relates to your program here. And when I get to that, I'll tell you a little bit about the work that was done and who did that. So this might be a familiar bumper sticker to you. It's what our governor is out promoting in terms of his agricultural initiatives. He's quick to say who's your farmer, and what he means is, are you purchasing local foods, and do you know who prepared the food or grew the food that you're eating? The UM Farm to College program has been around since May of 2003. The mission for our program is to support agricultural economic development through the purchase of local and regional foods, and to be a model for institutional local and regional food purchasing. What local means to us in terms of the geographical area that food has to travel is Montana is local. Anything that comes from the state of Montana we classify as local, and then regional is the surrounding states. And again, if you recall the mission statement, we're talking about agricultural economic development. So it's important, it has been important for us from the start of our program to consider that, because local food programs, farm to college programs, farm to school programs, and programs like those are popping up all over the country. And as they do, if the University of North Dakota starts a program similar to us and sources regional foods, that's going to benefit Montana ranchers and farmers and growers. So the idea is to try to take care of the northwest quadrant here. So what does produce mean? This was one we had to struggle with to get us to a common definition. So for purposes of our program, we're talking about products that are grown, processed, value-added, or manufactured and originate in our defined area, and contain local and regional products when seasonally available, and of course are a product unique to the region. So products unique to the region might be Daly's bacon, might be huckleberries, might be morels, items that we buy that are quite unique to the region. And then the other products, value added, I'm not sure. The value added piece there, that's critically important, especially when we start talking about the transportation piece and what the implications are for the food miles that food travels. We'll talk a little bit about that later. So quickly, the vendors that we have participating, and by no means is this an exhaustive list. There are about 54 vendors that are active vendors that we're doing business with. Those are some of them. And here's what it looks like in terms of local, and that's what this little poster is over here. But you can see from this quite graphically that the impact of our Farm to College program is significant in the communities where we are purchasing food from. And albeit the distance from Missoula to, say, Culberson is about, I don't know, 11 hours maybe by vehicle, it's important, and you'll see why, because that's where Montola is, and a little later on in the talk you'll see why that's important to that community. So that's what it looks like in terms of the map. So here's one of the things behind the program is we're often asked, does this make any business sense? Is there a good reason for doing this? And a lot of the folks who like to look for barriers in programs like this always say, well, local foods cost too much. But this is a really, really important graph. It's the only graph I think we have. I know we have a couple of other graphs in here, but what's important about this is that you should look at, here's our food, this is our overall food cost from fiscal year 03 to 07 last year. And you can see that it has gone down. And if you look here and look down at, we purchased more Farm to College products last year than ever, with 89% of them being from Montana. So significant economic impact locally and regionally. If you look at this switch here, when we, first full year of the program, 69.31, now 89.11. That's significant, as is this number. We've steadily increased the percentage of our total food purchases that fall into the Farm to College program. We also track food CPI down here. Our goal for FY08 is 20%, and that's a really aggressive goal, but it's a goal that we feel is important and attainable. And it's part of the reason why our program is cited as one of the most successful programs in the country, is because we are making a lot of purchases with our program. And you can see that enrollment has steadily gone up, and our meal plan participants has been relatively stable. And in fact, here it actually dropped, but all of our numbers that we track increased. Okay, so briefly I'll just kind of give you an overview of what the program has really become, and it really is a journey of relationships. It started with this single event here, Montana Mornings, in May of 2003, and it started and this is actually something that's important because we're a state entity. We don't have extra bodies laying around to throw labor at something like this. So what happened was, this is Professor Neva Hassing. She's also on the Recycling Oversight Committee, and I was on that committee. And she asked me what I thought about local foods after one of the meetings. And I said, I would be very supportive and would like to do more, but I don't have the human resources. So there's these three ladies here and there are graduate students, and she assigned those graduate students the task of working with me on coming up with a program or trying to get local foods, and Montana Mornings was the first event. But then, why I say it's a journey of relationships is because this Mission Mountain Enterprise Center, and this is something that to the transportation world should be very, you should really focus on that, look at what that represents, and consider that in terms of food miles and the whole local food system here. This is an incredible business incubator and entrepreneurial center in Ronan, and their work is incredible, and what we need in Montana is more of these kinds of facilities. I mentioned the value-added piece. What's important about that is the shift in what we're buying in terms of food. I can take you down to my kitchens and you're not going to see a case of iceberg lettuce, you're not going to see a case of romaine, you're not going to see a case of carrots, you're not going to see a case of celery, cabbage, any of that. Everything that we're buying is value-added. It's sliced, diced, chopped, minced, you name it, and that's how we're buying it in, because the cost of labor is so high and the cost of insurance and benefits is so high that we can't afford to have staff chopping vegetables and cutting meat, and so we spend significant amounts of money. Now we're working with this enterprise center to have them do some value-added product and packaging for us, and there's a lot of money. A lot of our food budget is spent on value-added products, so that also reduces. Right now, all of that stuff is coming from Arizona, California, other countries, where it's value-added, shipped in, and sold. So if we can be doing some of that in Montana, that will significantly reduce the food miles. So the relationship piece, we went up to the Mission Mountain Enterprise Center. Those folks came down, the farmers, the ranchers, folks who belong to the Western Montana Food Growers Co-op, came down and talked with us. They got a chance to see our operations, see the volume, and our kitchens and the volume that we pump through these kitchens is astronomical compared to what their typical clients would be. Next generation of that, now we have these relationships. So we go out and talk with the farmers and ranchers, they're my chefs and my production staff, management staff, purchasing staff. Went out and talked with folks about what they could grow for us, and this was the first year that we actually had a couple of growers contact us before they started their seedlings and said, what kind of varieties would you guys like? And Dixon Melons is one of them. We're one of the only places in Missoula that you can buy. They have provided us with a significant wide variety of melons that you can't get anywhere else. You can get the Dixon cantaloupes down at the farmer's market, but we get their Crenshaws, we get their yellow watermelons. So they grew a whole bunch of specialty varieties for us that only we, and the last time I checked, this year in the melon season, we've purchased over 4,000 pounds of melons already. And we're still running them. We're getting on the downhill side of that, but we're still running that product. So this is an important piece of the relationship development because if these guys, if these growers are willing to grow more of what we use, then it travels less, shorter distances, and the carbon footprint is reduced significantly to get the food to us to serve our guests. And so we're now beginning here, this is actually down at the, well, that's the Peas Farm, and this is the Dixon Melon farm up in, is it Dixon? And so, you know, kind of where is this going and has it taken legs? Is there some momentum? And the answer to that is yes. Here is the governor, and he is, he came to this building actually last May and did an official signing for Senate Bill 328, which is a byproduct of the hard work of Grow Montana and other food security and food advocates. And he signed Senate Bill 328, which is a bill that allows institutions to purchase local foods even if they're slightly higher. So we're no longer tied to the purchasing, the state purchasing system that says you have to take the lowest bid, the lowest price, the lowest, and sometimes quality. So that's a significant piece of legislation, and that's kind of the continuing saga, and also represents the commitment that the governor has toward Who's Your Farmer and supporting legislation that is beneficial to the Montana agricultural community.
Was there much opposition to that from
No,
food service?
I believe it passed unanimous through the whole way. I don't think there was any opposition at all to that. Unlike we were involved in some legislation at the previous biennium, and there was a significant amount of opposition, and some of none of those bills really succeeded the first go around. So significant headway has been made now. Okay, so one of the other goals of the Farm to College program, ours and others like ours, is actually to reduce the food miles between where products are grown and where it's ultimately consumed. So Nita Hassanen, I pointed her out, and some of her students did a research project, and that's called Tracing the Chain. And there's copies up here if you would like. But this paper kind of gets to the food miles issue, and this is her work, not my work, that's going to follow here. So, and I wanted to tie that in. In fact, she and her students made this farm, when they made the presentation, they made this poster to talk about it, because it is a very graphic way to kind of highlight their research in this area. And I did have some of my staff copy these, and we'll look at those. But first, one of the things that they found was this. They took a typical hamburger French fry meal that we serve daily, and they followed these 4 items: the buns, the patties, the potatoes, and the cooking oil. And then they talked with Cisco, who's our prime vendor, who we were buying product from, and they got the information from them about the distances that food traveled. And then they did the same process for our farm to college items, and this is what they found. That you're talking about 2.8 times further further in terms of the traveling of that food. 40, this is over a 1-year period, 43,000 more gallons of fuel and 2.9 times the amount of CO2 into the air. And graphically, that sort of looks like, here's the distance that stuff traveled. And you can see that there is a considerable reduction in miles traveled and distance that the food traveled. And that's a quote from one of the Montana ranchers that they interviewed in their research. And then here is what the CO2 emissions looks like. And again, it's really significant. And if you can imagine that there are literally hundreds of colleges and universities out there now who are starting farm-to-college programs, and if you can envision the impact that that will have, it's pretty significant. And it's something that I happen to personally believe is necessary. It's important for more schools to move in that direction. And we're getting a lot of help from the conventional food supply chain in terms of diseases, foreign object, you name it. I mean, if you look at what's going on with foods from China in particular, and the question of who's your farmer and where does my food come from is really in the forefront of the consumer's mind, and I believe that it should be. So, and then there's of course the obvious health benefits to local foods traveling further, fresher. If you look at the obesity issue and now the newest research about obesity in children, elementary school children, and the impact there, that's an epidemic proportion. So it's really something that I believe is going to be driven by the consumer and it's going to stick around. On those four for last year, anybody want to take a guess at how much money we spent for those 4 items last year? You don't have to guess.
Local or both?
The total dollars that we spent on just those 4 commodities. To give you, I'm doing this to kind of give you an idea of how much money we're talking about relative to that research, and really, so let's see. So we spent almost 19,000 in hamburger buns, 37,000 in hamburger patties, another 20,000 in French fries, and another 22,500 in safflower oil. So almost $100,000 in just 4 commodities that we bought. That's a year's worth of purchases, last year's worth of purchases. So when you look at that amount and then those other numbers, you're talking about this safflower oil right here all comes from Culbertson. Now, that's $22,000 to that community annually. That's significant economic impact for a community and a business like that. Now, those are the numbers in terms of the amounts of food. And we do all of this because of our students. We are here to serve our student guests and to provide them with the most nutritious and be responsive to their social and economic interests. And that's who we serve, and we like to provide the best quality that we can for our students. So I'll open it up to any questions that you might have, and I'll be happy to answer them. Yes?
Why did buns go up?
Buns?
One slide showed buying local, the miles went up. Or was it the cost? I can't remember. It's about 7 slides back.
Yeah, we could probably go back to, no.
There.
Okay. Let's see. The buns. the buns go from Three Forks, Montana to Cisco, Montana to Missoula, Montana. Where we used to buy buns from, they would come from Spokane or somewhere in Washington and over to here. So that's the difference in miles.
The buns in Spokane, they were made somewhere else, or
Yeah.
they're made there?
Well, you just asked a good question without really even asking the question. Here's the difference, okay? And why we spend more money for wheat Montana rolls, okay? However, more upfront money. The way the bread world works, you order your bread 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, whatever it is, and you can't change your order after a certain point in time, even if your counts change. And in our business, our meal counts can change 300 in a day. It could be nice today at lunch, and we could feed, say, 1,200 in the food zoo, or if it was, and then the weather changes, we could feed 1,400, or vice versa. It could be really rainy as heck, and we could feed 1,200 for lunch, and then sunny and warm all of a sudden at dinner, and we could feed 800. So, problem is that when we're forecasting for our food, we have to use our historical numbers. And so when we order, let's say, 20 dozen hamburger buns, we don't have any latitude to change that, and that after a certain point. And that point is, it's not close enough to our actual service dates for us to be able to do that. So the other thing is those breads have preservatives. They have all sorts of chemicals and stuff in them. Wheat Montana bread, no chemicals, no additives, and it's frozen. So they bake their bread fresh because it has no chemical preservatives. They freeze it immediately. It stays frozen all the way to us. It goes into our freezers. Now, if we know our production cycle, and if we fed 400 at lunch and we thought we were going to feed 600 at dinner, we can pull the amount of bread that we need, and we don't lose that. So the actual true cost, after you factor everything in, is a lot closer to break even on that deal. Plus, it's a local product, it's a more healthier product. And the same thing can be said about that oil. Okay? We use safflower oil for everything, well, except for when we use olive oil. But for our salad dressings and for our deep fat frying and for all of our oil needs, we use Montola safflower oil. That is the best product that money can buy, available readily commercially, I should say, to cook with. And so there's proven health benefit. It's also one of the best oils to convert to biodiesel fuel. And we were giving our fuel to the biodiesel folks at one point, but that's kind of changed a little bit now. But still, from a health standpoint, better. That stuff also costs about twice what we could buy oil for. Okay? But we make the decision based on this is the best product for the students that we serve, and so we're going to use this product. So, yeah.
Is this program expanding into the local high schools?
Yeah, there's a Vista worker actually in town working with the school system to start a farm to school program, and there are a couple of the schools are doing some things. In fact, my daughter goes to Washington Middle School, and I happen to notice that they have some local foods on their menu, and they're doing some things in a good direction. And it's a bigger challenge, I think, for the K through 12 system, but it is something that's catching on and moving and gaining some momentum. Yeah.
You said for fiscal year '08, your goal is 20% of the farm to college products.
Yes.
In the next 5 to 10 years, are you hoping for growing that number more and more?
Another good question. 20% is really a pretty aggressive number when you consider where we are. I mean, we have short growing season here, but we're looking at some things, preserving, freezing. We're looking at, again, those value-added things where we can lengthen the availability of local products into off-season. Long-term, what we're looking at is actually something that's we're going to roll out very soon now. We've got, very soon means maybe today, first part of next week. We're going to be rolling out what we're calling the UDS Sustainable Future Initiative. And what we're now looking at is beyond food, cleaning chemicals, equipment, paper products, essentially everything that we consume. We're looking at sustainable practices for all of that. So the Farm to College program will actually become part of this bigger program. And we will actually, one of the recommendations in Neva's work was that the Farm to College program refers only to Montana products. So what we're going to do is, in fact, we're going to change the Farm to College program to refer only to Montana products, and the rest of the things that we're going to look at are going to be with global sustainability in mind. So what does that mean in terms of commodity? Let's say coffee. We're going to go beyond fair trade, and we're going to go to programs that are called crop to cup. So that means the coffee roaster buys directly from the coffee farmer and that product, and pays the coffee farmer directly for the product. There's no middle people, and that person then either sends the beans to the coffee roaster, or in one case with a product that we're buying, roasts the product right there to the specs that Craven's Coffee is who it is that we are doing it with. So we are moving in a much more global thinking direction, including vehicles. We're looking at electric or green vehicles, bicycles. We were talking about bicycles earlier for delivery on campus, those kinds of things.